Hunnam onto the stage. I want to invite my co-writers, David Branson Smith and Teddy Bressman, onto the stage. I want to invite Brad Feinstein, our producer, and Ryan Stoll, our producer, onto the stage. I want to invite Fran Kranz onto the stage. And I would like to invite, if she's ready for us, the wonderful Jessica Barden onto the stage.
I'm going to have to look her up because she's really good.
What happened? Jessica will be joining us in a second.
I guess it's a good time to start. I just want to talk about the initial idea for the movie. It's so conceptually well crafted. Where did it come from, and what was your process like working with the writers?
My friend and constant collaborator is a guy named Jake Johnson, who I'd been in my first movie that came to Toronto with, had pitched me sort of the kernel of the idea of making this movie about brothers, and simultaneously I just read this play by Lyle Kessler called Orphans, and I called David and Teddy about it, and pitched them the rough kind of big idea of it, and we started kicking around ideas. I was in New York at the time, they were in LA, and we started writing back and forth, and this was probably around 10 years ago. Yeah.
I would ask, I'm gonna wait to speak to the cast until Jessica is on here, but I wanted to ask about...
Where the fuck are you, Jessica? She was just there, right?
I wanted to ask, since we have the producers on stage, I wanted to ask about some of the production challenges you had putting this together. Was it shot over a long period of space? Is it many different locations, different cities, or is it one place?
So we shot the balance of it in Fall River, Massachusetts, which was really, really interesting to be there in that town. And boy, did they love Charlie. Like 500 people a day showing up in 90-degree heat just to get a look.
We also shot in Reno, Nevada, and did the final scene, obviously.
I like Charlie there too.
Yeah.
We shot in the city when David Smith actually, it was his idea to set this in Fall River, Massachusetts, and it's so rare when you have a random idea to set something. David had some experience being around that part of the world, and we set it there, and there was a great Massachusetts tax break, and we got to shoot in all of these real locations, and it made our job very easy because you could really just turn the camera and point it anywhere, and it would look the way it looked. We were really lucky to be there on location. We were shooting all over that area of the world, and the people couldn't have welcomed us more and been kind of kinder to us.
You know, the film is very much about the American dream, and that was a part of America. You know, particularly after the Industrial Revolution, it was incredibly wealthy, you know, and they're falling on really hard times now. And it was just interesting for us playing these people that were, you know, desperately trying to keep this dream alive for ourselves, and, you know, be sort of in that environment where we saw people just getting up every day and fighting the good fight and trying to bring forth the highest intention for their lives, you know. So it was a really beautiful environment for us to be here and, you know, created the sensibility that we were looking for.
You know, as you say that, it occurs to me that one of the other great roles we remember you for is also kind of an industrialist in its own way, from Sons. And somebody who runs business, somebody who understands that piece of the American dream, the whole piece of the American dream. And I wonder what attracts you to those kinds of scripts and this kind of Americana.
I mean, I was always deeply fascinated with America, you know, the period of filmmaking from the 70s is really what got me into, you know, my desire to work in America. And, you know, it has, you know, part of the, you know, the American law, the American dream. I wanted that. Like, I wanted to come as an immigrant to this country and seek my fortune. And, you know, this was the place that the industry that I wanted to be a part of was the most robust. So, you know, I really deeply relate to that. But in terms I don't think it was as much specifically to do with that why I wanted to do this. I just fell in love with Max's beautiful script, and then I saw the movie that he did before this, Flower, and I was pretty sure I was gonna love him. I knew I loved his work, and then we met, and I fell madly in love with him. And we just went and had a love fest together making this movie.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Charlie, you've never seen the movie before. How did it play?
I haven't. I'm fucked up right now. I gotta tell you, I'm trying to keep it together. It was emotional for me watching that. I generally don't watch the stuff that I do, but this was a really special experience, and I love Max so much that I just wanted to see what he did with this. So. Thank you. A lot of it is to this man, so. Take a bow for that.
Did you like it?
I did like it. You know, the thing that you taught me, you know, which was just the sort of give me the courage just to be myself. I'm gonna start fucking crying. But I thought it was the most honest performance I've ever given. Not to say I don't have some stuff to work on. The house making notes. It's like, that was terrible. You fucked that up. You gotta work on your voice a little more. So there's some stuff I'm gonna go work on, believe me. But it was a step in the right direction.
I want to ask about both of you working with Jack too, because the relationship is so palpable and feels so lived in and so real. Did you spend a lot of time developing it together offset before you came on set to do it? Or?
We didn't have the time. You know, those like stories when you're like, yeah, we went to boot camp and lived in Fall River for like a month and a half and slept in, you know, ate our own shit. Like that's like we didn't have that luxury. So like we just had to cast as well as we could, and we got these three brilliant actors, and then Fran and Jonathan Majors and the evergreen John Cullum fell into place. And you just had to cast right and cross your fingers that the script was okay enough and that they would figure it out. And Jack and Charlie's dynamic, like the entire opening credit sequence we did completely, you know, sort of freewheeling, just the DP and a couple of crew members and the camera and myself, and that's with no lights, and that's just watching these guys start to become who they're supposed to be, and the tactile relationship between them and the love between them, we could feel immediately through that. And that was on a camera test day where we were like, let's not waste time camera testing, let's actually shoot. And it became really apparent that these guys were becoming who they were supposed to be immediately. And I just, yeah, to me, casting is the most important part of the whole process, because, you know, we can sit in a room and write the script till the cows come home. If you don't find people that really sort of embody that and then allow them to interpret it the way they need to and make it their own, then it'll never be, I think, what it can be.
You want to add to that?
Well, I mean, I thought it was a really, really beautiful opportunity in this relationship that Max and Teddy and, you know, and everybody who's developing this had put together to explore a little bit of the modern face of masculinity. You know, I thought it was so brilliant the way these guys created an environment and a narrative that would create an expectation of hyper masculinity, a sort of classic butch masculinity, and then we would be able to subvert that expectation with this really beautiful, open, you know, tactile, honest, vulnerable relationship between these two men, you know, and I just thought it was, you know, there's a lot of narrative right now about uplifting the feminine, which we should be, absolutely, you know, we need to uplift everybody, but there's also, I'm hyper aware of a phenomenon going on, at least where I come from, which is a place of very rich history in industry, and that industry's all dried up now, you know, and it was shipbuilding and coal mining and factory work, much like Fall River, Massachusetts. And all of that industry's gone now, and what has been replaced is IT. So these men that used to go down to factories now go to offices and get screamed at every day. But there's not the culture of being vulnerable with each other and being able to talk to each other and say, listen, I'm hurting and I'm sad and I'm depressed and I don't know what the hell, how to make this transition. And the result of that is a rapidly escalating suicide rate. You know, people are killing themselves at, you know, frightening level. And so, you know, I thought there's just an opportunity to do something really beautiful in an environment where you would expect these guys to be sort of super tough guys and just like let their hearts just like be open, you know?
I'm trying to tell if she's hiding back there. I can't see it in the way. I'm going to open it up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions? Right here?
Thank you.
So I'll repeat the compliment just so everyone can hear it.
Yes, please.
Many people know you as Henry Winkler's son. After this movie, you'll be
Correct.
known as Max Winkler, the director.
I look forward to it. Yes.
Good songs.
Oh, you look familiar. Thank you very much. I so appreciate it. Absolutely not.
The question was for
I literally just with this movie started to figure out how to act, and now I'm just like, I'm now on fire. I'm like, okay, I got this shit figured out. Watch out, Ryan Gosling. I'm joking. Ryan, no one can touch Ryan.
He's Canadian.
Well done.
Yeah. Careful.
Yeah, right. Did you just feel the audience turn on me? Such strong, come on.
Right here? Yes, sir.
The single greatest compliment I've ever received. Thank you. Sincerely and deeply.
Does anybody have a question?
Well, the dog cell I'm not taking any responsibility for. That's these guys. And I'm very sorry. The schedule, you know, I always try to come say hi, but, you know, I just couldn't today. But, yeah, okay, at least you saw
You should
that.
see what happened to the dog now.
Right here. So the question was what you look for in a character or a script before you sign on to a role.
Yeah, I never really know. It's just the quality of the writing and, you know, something like in the themes that speak to something that I'm interested in. I mean, it's just a very instinctual thing. I read a script and I either it's very similar to watching a film in a way. Like you see a film and you think, oh, I would have loved the opportunity to play that character, you know, or not. And so it's sort of the same. And with something like this, it's just so, just has so many elements to it that excited me. It was a no-brainer. But more and more, it's about also not just the character, but the director, because the director is so important, you know, obviously.
Up here.
And I'm wondering how that tied in with actually the characters in which you played represent a lot of what Bruce Springsteen has sung about in the past. I'm wondering if that's the line of thinking or how did that all play into your
I'll
So-
let, oh yeah.
Yeah, so the two questions were about the title of the movie, which I'm going to throw to the writers for this one,
Yes.
and then also about the final song and whether kind of Bruce Springsteen's themes factored into the film.
Yes. Writers?
Well, we started writing this movie 10 years ago, so I don't know what initially. Maybe
Lion at that point.
For 8 years. But I think we have, I think we all kind of have Bruce Springsteen embedded in our DNA from our fathers, and I think that the spirit of the characters, the name Lion, and like kind of the idea of these guys just out in the wild without anyone really to like take care of them, kind of made that title, I think, make sense to us. And it's weird with titles, like you either have them immediately or you never do. And when we heard this one, I feel like we all just like didn't even debate, like we all knew, I think, that was the one we were gonna go with.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, I remember that movie Lion came out,
Yeah.
and our script was called Lion.
Yeah.
And Max called me and he said, "What do you think about the title Jungleland?" And I said, "Sure."
This movie was so long ago. Our first thing was like, dude, we're never gonna be able to make this movie because Warrior's coming out. And then we're like, shit. Then we're like, dude, we're never gonna be able to make this movie because The Fighter's coming out. Shit. And then we're like, dude, Lion! And then we're like, so it's been a journey.
I think it's a better title.
And the Jungleland, the song at the very end, I couldn't figure out how to make that final movement work in the editing room until Mas and I, the editor, were in the room, and I would always just be on my little child's desk with my headphones on trying to find songs, and we couldn't figure out the right song. We put this in, and it was a blessing and a curse because I knew we were never gonna get it, and I knew I was gonna have to get it through all means necessary. And it all came together at that moment because it's actually a Bruce covering Suicide. It's Martin Reb's great band, and the what Bruce is saying is so clearly embedded in the spirit of Charlie's character. Stanley Kaminsky was the ultimate dreamer, to a fault. And Bruce is, famously really protective over his music, as he should be in movies, and we did every avenue possible until I could finally get to John Landau, and it was, Charlie had just done ADR and had an emotional response to it, so much so that he had sent me a video of him singing that song. Yes, I'm sure you guys would like to get your hands on that. And I immediately saw like dollar bills in my eyes, and I told Charlie, I said, I'm gonna need to be able to use this as a parlay chip to try and get this song, and he said, you have my blessing. And I sent that video to John Landau, Bruce's manager, and produced a lot of the Born to Run album and other great Bruce songs, and that was the first time I felt like we were actually gonna get the song, so it was really Charlie's singing, or like,
All my singing was ever going to end in a positive result.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go
I missed it. Who did the score?
oh yeah, that's Fran, that's Buck Noble, everybody, a brilliant actor. Grew up idolizing Fran. This guy named Lorne Balfe, who I met through Brad, and he'd never done a score like this. We were really I really wanted the score to feel kind of like a 90s Miramax movie, and not sort of like a gritty, independent, like guitar-driven score. And because Lion and Stanley don't feel bad for themselves and have this sort of almost like fallen king-like perspective on the world, I wanted the score to feel royal and big and bold and a lot of brass and a lot of... Do you like the score, Fran, or do you have notes about it?
That was amazing.
Yeah, Lauren was amazing. And, I thought brought such a different feeling to this type of movie than, because we tried the Paris, Texas version, we tried, the sort of Johnny Greenwood version, and we couldn't figure out the score until we started messing around with brass and listening to William Byrd and the score, and The Last Detail was a huge influence, and yeah.
We have time for a couple more. I'm gonna go here.
Right. Writers. Actually, I'm
So,
gonna...
just for the rest of the
Yes.
audience. So the question was, there's this trend of these guys are never going to win in the film, and maybe there's a kernel of maybe something's better at the end.
Yeah, I mean, Stanley is being, to me, the most important shot of the movie is Stanley turning around with handcuffs on and the big smile on his face and realizing that his prized possession, his great love, is going to be okay without him, and that he's fulfilling his destiny, which is this one gift that he has. And to me, that look on his face tells me everything. You know, it's like we always thought of Stanley more as a kind of a single mother more than an older brother. Like all he's doing is trying to ready this boy for a better life, because Stanley's definitely not the type of guy who's going to be around for forever. He kind of knows he's on borrowed time, and we always really played with that idea. And to me, that look of joy that he has of seeing his brother fulfill his destiny is the greatest gift that Stanley could ever receive, and gives us hope at the end. Writers, am I missing anything?
That was super articulate.
Thank you.
Nothing to add.
They're like your hype men.
Yeah.
It's time for one more. I'm going to go here on the aisle. Yes. So the question was about their parents and how conscious was it to make it less of the storyline?
I was really, John Steinbeck and Mice and Men was stuff we were talking about a lot. And, I like that these guys took care of each other from town to town. They would just move like from town to town until things got too hot and Stanley fucked things up and they would have to leave again. And there was only, there's a mention of the parents when Lion and Sky are at the bar together, and he really just has this one brilliant acted moment where he just says, "My mom died when I was really young and my dad never wanted me. He didn't want us." And that's all you need to know, because the way in which they interact, like that play Orphans, is it's like they're in their own universe, and that's why Sky entering the movie has such a catatonic shift for them, because she's the first agent of change to sort of come in and give a different idea.
And one more question.
Yeah.
Was kissing the necklace at the end, the mother's necklace? No?
Yes, it was actually.
Charlie.
Totally, absolutely.
We never talked about it, but I think that was what Jack created.
the
Were you
necklace.
aware of that?
No.
I think that is something that Jack had worked on.
That's how it felt
And
when
that
we watched
just
it. It was
create
so
that,
beautiful. So,
yeah. Right?
Thank you.
Teddy,
Thank you very
David,
much.
I'll take credit for that.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you all so much
Thank
for
you,
coming.
guys.
and for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.